It didn't start with a slam of a door or a shouted command. It started with a whisper, a suggestion wrapped in the finest silk of affection. His name was Julian, and he was, by all accounts, the perfect man. He had a smile that could disarm armies and eyes that held a galaxy of promises. When I met him, I felt like I had spent my entire life walking through a grayscale world, and he was the first splash of color. Our first few months were a whirlwind of cinematic moments, rooftop dinners under a canopy of stars, spontaneous weekend trips to coastal towns, long nights spent talking about everything and nothing. He listened to me with an intensity that made me feel like I was the only person in the universe. He'd tilt his head, his brow furrowed with concentration, and he'd remember the tiniest details, the name of my childhood pet, my irrational fear of butterflies, my dream of one day opening a small bookstore cafe. He wasn't just hearing me, he was archiving me. The first whisper came on a Tuesday. I was getting ready for a casual dinner with his colleagues. I pulled on my favorite sweater. It was a soft, oversized merino wool, the color of a faded sunset. It had a small, barely noticeable hole near the cuff, a casualty of a snag on a doorknob years ago. To me, it was comfort personified. It was my go-to for stressful days, for cozy nights, for feeling like me. I walked into the living room, and Julian looked up from his phone. His smile was warm, as always, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Hey, you," he said, his voice smooth as honey. He stood up and walked over to me, his hands gently taking mine. "You look beautiful." He paused, his thumb tracing a circle on the back of my hand. "But that sweater," he trailed off, a thoughtful look on his face. "It doesn't do you justice, Ilara. It hides your incredible figure, and the color. It washes you out a little, don't you think?" I felt a prickle of defensiveness. "Oh, this is my favorite," I said with a small laugh. "It's so comfortable." "I know, my love," he said, his voice dropping to that intimate, persuasive tone. "But tonight is important. First impressions. I want them to see the brilliant, stunning woman I get to be with. Not just a comfortable one." He guided me back toward the bedroom. I saw a beautiful silk blouse in that boutique we passed last week, the emerald green one. That color would make your eyes pop. He framed it as a compliment, an act of adoration. He wanted the world to see me as he saw me. How could I argue with that? So, I changed. The silk was cold against my skin. That was the beginning. The whispers became more frequent. A pair of jeans I loved were suddenly not sophisticated enough. My collection of worn and banned t-shirts were remnants of a past you've outgrown. He never demanded I get rid of them. Instead, he'd surprise me. He'd come home with a shopping bag from a high-end designer. "I saw this, and I just had to get it for you," he'd say, his face beaming with pride. "Try it on, for me," and I would. My closet slowly transformed. The comfortable cottons and familiar wools were pushed to the back, replaced by a sea of silks, cashmeres, and tailored linens in a palette of muted, elegant colors he approved of. Beige, charcoal, navy/cream. My sunset sweater disappeared one day. When I asked, he feigned ignorance, then suggested the cleaners must have lost it. He bought me a replacement, a stiff, form-fitting cashmere shell in a bland oat color. "Much better," he'd said, kissing my forehead. "This is who you are now, polished, refined." I told myself it was love. He was investing in me. He was helping me become the best version of myself. When I shared this with my best friend, Maya, over coffee, she wasn't convinced. Maya and I had been friends since kindergarten. We'd navigated scraped knees, high school heartbreaks, and terrible first jobs together. She knew me down to the bone. She knew my soul was woven from bright, chaotic colors, not beige. "He threw out your sunset sweater?" Maya asked, her fork frozen over her slice of cake. "He didn't throw it out," I corrected, a little too quickly. "It got lost, and he bought me a beautiful new one. A beige one," she stated flatly. "Ilara, you hate beige. You once told me beige was the color of giving up." "People change, Maya," I said, my voice tight. "I'm growing. Julian is helping me do that. He has impeccable taste." "He has his taste," she countered, putting her fork down. Her eyes were full of a concern that I found irritating. "What about your taste? Does it still exist?" The question lingered in the air, making me uncomfortable. I changed the subject, but the seed of her words was planted. Julian seemed to sense it. His attention, which had been so focused on my wardrobe, began to shift. It shifted to Maya. It started subtly, as always. Maya's a lot of fun, he'd say, after she'd left our apartment. A pause. A little loud, maybe. She sort of dominates the conversation, doesn't she? Another time, after a night out, he commented, the way she dresses, it's a bit much. It draws a certain kind of attention. I worry about you when you're out with her alone. He was painting my vibrant, life of the party best friend as a liability, a wild card, a bad influence. The campaign against Maya was a masterclass in psychological warfare. He never forbade me from seeing her. That would have been too obvious, too controlling. Instead, he engineered situations. I'd make plans with Maya and an hour before Julian would reveal he'd secured impossible-to-get reservations at a Michelin star restaurant for that exact evening. A surprise for you, my love, he'd say, his eyes gleaming. I know how much you wanted to try this place. Canceling on Maya, I'd feel a pang of guilt, but it would be overshadowed by the grand romantic gesture. I was being celebrated, cherished. Maya would understand, but she didn't. Not really. Again, she'd say, over the phone, the disappointment clear in her voice. Ilara, that's the third time this month. I'm sorry, May, I'd say, twisting the phone cord. It was a surprise. You know how he is. Yes, she said, her voice laced with something I couldn't quite decipher then, but now I know was a mix of pity and fury. I'm beginning to. The fissure between me and my oldest friend grew with every cancelled plan, with every subtle criticism from Julian that I failed to defend. The final, catastrophic break came on my birthday. Maya had planned a surprise party for me at her apartment. Just the old gang, she'd said, tacos, cheap beer, and the playlist from our college days. A return to us. I was genuinely excited. A part of me I hadn't realized was starving, was desperate for that easy, uncomplicated fun. The day before, Julian announced his birthday gift to me, a weekend trip to Paris, leaving tomorrow morning, my birthday morning. I couldn't wait to tell you, he said, presenting me with the tickets as if they were the Holy Grail. Pack your bags, my love. We're going to have the most romantic birthday of your life. My heart sank. It was a beautiful, extravagant gift. The kind of gift any woman would be thrilled to receive. But all I could think about was Maya's taco night. Julian, I started, my voice trembling. That's incredible. But Maya, she planned a party for me tomorrow night. His smile tightened, just for a second, before relaxing into a look of tender sympathy. Oh, sweetheart, that's very sweet of her. But it's just a little get-together, isn't it? This is Paris, you can't compare the two. He tilted my chin up. She'll understand. A true friend would want you to have this. She would be happy for you. He had backed me into a corner, painted with love and generosity. To refuse would be ungrateful. To hesitate would be to choose a silly taco party over the city of love with the man I loved. He was making me the arbiter of Maya's friendship. If she gets upset, he was implying, it's because she's not a true friend. My call to Maya was one of the hardest I've ever had to make. I could hear her voice deflate over the line. Paris, she said, her voice flat. Wow, I'm so sorry, May, I pleaded. I didn't know. He just surprised me. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, she spoke, and her voice was devoid of its usual warmth. It was cold and surp, and it cut right through me. You know, Ilara, I thought he was just choosing your clothes, but he's choosing your life. And you're letting him. I hope you have a wonderful time in Paris. I hope the clothes he picked out for you are warm enough. And she hung up. I didn't cry. I felt a strange, chilling numbness. Julian came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. See, he whispered into my ear. I told you. If she was a real friend, she would have been ecstatic for you. Her jealousy is so transparent. You're better off without that kind of negativity in your life. It's just us now, and that's all you need. Paris was beautiful. We stayed in a lavish hotel with a view of the Eiffel Tower. We ate at exquisite restaurants. We walked through the Louvre. Julian bought me a whole new wardrobe there. Pieces, he said, were worthy of the city and worthy of me. And through it all, I felt a profound, aching emptiness. I was a doll being posed in a series of perfect pictures. I smiled when I was supposed to smile. I wore the clothes I was given. I looked at the art he told me was magnificent, but I wasn't there. The real me, the me who would have laughed until she cried at a stupid joke with Maya, the me who loved The feeling of a worn-out sweater. She was gone. I had traded her for this elegant ghost. Life after Paris, and after Maya, settled into a quiet, predictable rhythm. My world had shrunk to the size of our minimalist, Giuliano-approved apartment. My friends were his friends' couples, who talked about stock portfolios and summer homes in the Hamptons. They were nice enough, but the conversations were sterile. There were no shared histories, no inside jokes, no comfortable silences. I was Julian's beautiful, quiet girlfriend, an accessory he had curated as carefully as he had curated his collection of vintage watches. I lost my job. It wasn't dramatic. Julian simply started pointing out how stressful it was for me. "You come home so drained, my love," he'd say, massaging my shoulders. "That little bookstore doesn't appreciate you. The pay is insulting. Why don't you take some time off? Let me take care of you. You can focus on making our home beautiful, on being happy." He made it sound like a liberation. It was a cage. A gilded one, but a cage nonetheless. My days became a blur of sameness. Yoga in the morning, a class he'd found for me. Shopping for organic groceries from a list he'd often helpfully prepare. Reading books from a pile he'd selected, mostly nonfiction about art and history. I was no longer a person. I was a project. And the project was nearly complete. I was polished, refined, isolated. I was his. The awakening wasn't a lightning strike. It was a slow dawn that I had been refusing to watch. The catalyst was something small, something stupid. It was a Tuesday afternoon, gray and rainy. I was organizing Julian's closet, a task I did weekly. T-shirts folded into perfect squares, suits arranged by color and season. In the back of the closet, on the floor, was a box I had never seen before. It was just a plain cardboard box, sealed with tape. Curiosity, a feeling I hadn't genuinely experienced in years, pricked at me. My hands trembled slightly as I slit the tape open with my nail file. Inside were my things, my real things. On the very top was my sunset sweater, folded neatly. It wasn't lost. It had been here the whole time. Underneath it were my band t-shirts, my ripped jeans, a pair of brightly colored sneakers I'd loved, and at the bottom there was a small photo album. One I thought had been lost in a move years ago. I sat on the floor of his perfectly organized closet, the smell of cedar and expensive cologne surrounding me, and I opened the album. The first picture was of me and Maya in college, covered in mud after a charity run, grinning like idiots. My hair was a wild mess. I had on a ridiculous tie-dye shirt, and I had never looked happier. I flipped the page, me on a road trip, sleeping in the passenger seat with my mouth wide open. Me and my family at a barbecue, my dad flipping a burger, my mom laughing. Page after page of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. A life that was loud and messy and colorful, and mine. I traced the face of the girl in the photos. Her eyes were so bright. She wasn't wearing designer clothes. Her hair wasn't perfectly styled, but she was alive. So alive. A sob caught in my throat, hot and painful. It was the first real thing I had felt in what seemed like a lifetime. He hadn't just packed away my clothes, he had packed away my history, my identity. He had curated me by erasing me. He hadn't lost the sweater, he had hidden it. It was a lie. A small lie in the grand scheme of things, but it was the one that unraveled everything, because it meant all of it was a lie. His concern, his advice, his love. It wasn't about making me better, it was about making me his, completely. I put everything back in the box, taped it shut, and slid it back into its hiding place. But something inside me had shifted. The doll was starting to see the strings. For the next few days, I observed. I watched him with new eyes. I saw the way his smile didn't reach his eyes when I did something he hadn't I saw the flicker of annoyance when I expressed an opinion that wasn't a reflection of his own. I heard the subtle condescension in his voice when he explained something to me, as if I were a child. The silk of his affection was now coarse and suffocating. The final choice came a week later. We were at a dinner party with one of his business partners. The wife, a woman named Catherine, turned to me. "Alara, Julian tells me you're a fantastic decorator," she said kindly. "Our living room is so drab. I'd love to hear your ideas." For a second, the old me flickered to life. I thought about color, about texture, about creating a space that felt warm and inviting. Before I could speak, Julian laughed. A light, charming laugh that set my teeth on edge. "Oh, Alara is wonderful, but her tastes are very specific," he said, placing a hand on my knee. It felt heavy as lead, She'd have you paint everything cream and buy minimalist furniture. It's her signature. He squeezed my knee, a gesture that looked like affection to everyone else, but to me, it was a clear command. Agree with me, play the part. Everyone chuckled. Catherine smiled politely. And in that moment, looking at his handsome, smiling face, I felt a wave of absolute, crystal clear clarity. He wasn't just choosing my clothes anymore. He wasn't just choosing my friends. He was choosing my thoughts, my words, my signature. And he had done it so skillfully. I had handed him the pen. I looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't see the man I loved. I saw a stranger, a meticulous, patient architect of my isolation. I smiled back, a slow, deliberate smile that didn't reach my eyes. It was his smile. And I said, "You know, Julian, I was just thinking, I'm terribly fond of bright, vibrant colors. Maybe a deep teal, or even a burnt orange." The pressure on my knee increased. His smile didn't falter, but I saw it, a storm brewing in his perfect, galactic eyes. The rest of the dinner was a blur. I was polite, a West Serena, but inside, a revolution was underway. I had made my choice. He had made all the small choices for me, so I was left with only one big choice to make for myself. The next day, while he was at work, I moved. I didn't pack the silks or the cashmeres. I didn't take the jewelry he had bought me. I pulled the cardboard box out of his closet. I put on my old, ripped jeans, one of my favorite band t-shirts, and my colorful sneakers. They felt strange, like a foreign skin. And then, I put on my sunset sweater. It smelled faintly of cedar and lies, but underneath that, it smelled like home. It smelled like me. I took my wallet, my keys, and the photo album. I walked out of the apartment, the minimalist, Bijan charcoal cage, and didn't look back. My first stop was a payphone. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely dial the number I knew by heart. It rang 3 times. "Hello," Maya's voice, cautious. "May," I whispered, and my voice broke. "It's me." There was a pause, and then, "Elora, oh my God, where are you? Are you okay?" All the coldness was gone, replaced by a wave of pure, uncut concern. "I left him," I said, the words tasting of freedom and terror. "I chose to leave." I could hear her exhale, a sound of profound relief. "Okay," she said, her voice firm and steady, the anchor I had been missing for so long. "Okay, you come here, right now." I'm on my way to unlock the door. Walking into Maya's wonderfully cluttered, vibrant apartment was like breathing again after being underwater for years. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just wrapped me in a hug that was strong enough to hold all of my broken pieces together. She made me tea in a chipped, mismatched mug and let me talk. I told her everything. The clothes, Tewi spares, the isolation, the box. I cried until I had no tears left. The coming months were not easy. Julian called and texted and emailed. His messages ranged from pleading and romantic to angry and accusatory. I was ungrateful. I was crazy. I was throwing away the perfect life. With Maya's help, I blocked his number, his MIL, his everything. I reclaimed the silence. I got a job at a different bookstore, one filled with quirky staff and the delicious scent of old paper and fresh coffee. I started painting again, filling canvases with the bright, messy, chaotic colors that lived inside me. One day, I walked into a department store and bought the gaudest, most colorful dress I could find. It was a riot of fuchsias and oranges and blues. It was everything Julian would have hated. I wore it out of the store, and for the first time in years, I felt beautiful. Not because a man had told me I was, but because I felt like myself. I am still rebuilding. There are days when a whisper of self-doubt creeps in, a ghost of his voice telling me I'm not good enough, not refined enough, not polished enough. But then I look around. I look at the joyful chaos of my own small apartment, at the canvases leaning against the walls, at a photo of me and Maya, taken last week, where I am laughing so hard my eyes are closed, and I touch the sleeve of my sunset sweater, which I wear often. It has a new hole now, from getting caught on a bookshelf, but it's not a flaw, it's a story, and it's my story. He chose my clothes, and he chose my friends. He tried to choose my soul, but I chose to leave. And in doing so, I finally chose myself.